Welcome to Beyond the Basement, the complete Attack on Titan podcast. In this show, we're not just rewatching, we're going behind the scenes, deep into the anime story, unearthing intrigue, and exploring new theories about the Attack on Titan universe. The majority of each episode is spoiler-free. Then, after a warning, we'll take a few minutes to connect the dots with storylines from future episodes. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, but don't forget, you can join us for the live broadcast Sunday nights on Facebook and watch every episode on YouTube. Links will be in the show notes. With that, let's get into the conversation. Clink of the glasses. Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of Beyond the Basement. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Hansen.
I'm Pete.
I'm Daniel.
He's the tall one. So, welcome to the first part of the show where we do a spoiler-free walkthrough of the episode, talk about some fan theories, examine some stuff, and we're going to start off with Daniel. You're going to get us rolling. Give us a quick synopsis of episode 1.
So in the year 845, humanity is trapped behind walls that they've built to keep out what's called Titans, which are giants that eat human beings. They're pretty much unintelligent, and they just consume people, so they built walls to protect them. They've been caged in, but for the last 100 years, they've lived in peace and safety. Our story follows Eren and his friends, and by the end of it, guess what happens to those protective walls?
Special walls. Special walls done get kicked in is what happens. So we also meet basically all the cast of the main characters. You know, we meet Eren pretty much right away. We meet Mikasa and we meet Armin, who are all young. I mean, I guess they don't really say the age, but they're clearly like kids, like
8 to 13.
Yeah,
tops.
yeah, maybe 10-ish, 12-ish, something like that. They kind of have kid problems going on. They got bullies and stuff like that. We meet Eren's parents. We meet one of the guards. We meet a couple guards. We meet one named Hannes. And then the Titans as well, right? So you kind of get this like quick overview of like, all right, so here's everything, which they actually do a good job. When I was watching this episode, one of my first thoughts was, as a first timer watching it, was, okay, they're actually doing a good job of like it feels a little slow, but they do a good job of like picking up the pace right away. So you got to get through the first like 10 minutes of the episode. You're a little confused, but they like get you into the action right away. And they do what J.J. Abrams calls the question box, or the mystery box. That's what he calls it. They give you the mystery box like right away, which is, okay, they just broke into the walls. Now what? These Titans are like these murderous, machines have just broken the walls. And so now what? So that's basically episode 1. The episodes, obviously, you've already watched this, are about 20 minutes apiece. And like I said, they do a pretty good job of making sure that you, in that 20 minutes, you get just enough to be like, oh God, I have to go to the next one. Like, this is one of those binge-worthy shows I think that has ever existed. So,
Really is.
Let's see, what was I going to see?
Is it okay if I tell?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first time I saw this show was late at night. I had caught up with my Naruto Shippuden viewing. And it's really long.
the anime that never ends.
Yes, it is. But I just Googled, okay, I think at that point in time, Dragon Ball Super hadn't come out yet. And so I just Googled, what's the best anime to watch right now? And right at the top of 3 of the list was Attack on Titan. I really want to investigate my animes first. It's an investment when you start to watch some of these things, especially Naruto. I watched every episode of Naruto.
Attack on Titan's investment too. At least if you started on day 1, they put like what 2 years in between episodes or seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah, a long time.
And it's quality stuff. It's not this. Mm-hmm. There's no filler. So I bring it up, and it's late at night. I should be going to bed, get ready for work, that kind of thing. And it's dark outside. And where I live, there's a lot of trees, and it's kind of spooky. I'm usually not, one to be afraid of the dark.
The barn.
But I'm in my room, and I have the lights off. And I'm like, yeah, why not? Click, watch it. And I'm laying there and watching Attack on Titan, and it finishes with the end scene of these monsters coming and consuming
and biting Eren's mom
in half, and there's blood spray, and it's a lot of it is done almost in the horror genre, and so I'm there in the dark. I'm like I'm afraid to move my blinds apart to see a big eyeball in the window.
Yeah, that's why. So Daniel actually talked me into watching this show. We'll talk more about our anime backgrounds in a little bit, but he talked me into watching this show, and same thing. Like my initial reaction to this was like, it was late at night, and you're like, no, you got to watch this. And I'm like, I don't do anime. You're like, no, just trust me. Just let's do this one. Just watch this pilot. And I'm like, okay. He talks me into it, and I definitely was like, oh my word, like what
Hooked.
What just happened, right? They give you the to be continued, and you're like, no, like tell me more.
This show has a perpetual way of just constantly giving you just enough to be like, oh, I gotta find out what's next, and then they hit you with that to be continued, and it's the most frustrating and then simultaneous, like gratifying. I need to know, like I'm happy and I'm so frustrated that this is ending right now because I want to watch the next episode immediately.
Yeah. So intrigue is definitely kind of the name of the game with this show. So I kind of want to talk real quick. Again, this is the spoiler-free part. I want to talk about stuff that we saw in this episode that we, having gone forward, we know is important, maybe details that people should pay attention to. And so a couple things. So the first thing they actually show, the very first thing they show is this giant titan breaking through the wall. Right, and then the next thing they show is a bunch of guys on horses, and they explain just really briefly with some really good animation, like, okay, these guys are obviously soldiers, they're on these horses, and they're out like in the woods somewhere, and there's one of these giants, one of the titans. And they have this 3D like ODM gear, which is pretty central to anybody who's in the soldiers. This isn't really much of a spoiler, they do say this in the episode, but the guys that you see there are what they call the scout regiment, so they're like the elite, like forward, like go into danger like soldiers.
They're the ones who go beyond the walls.
And they use this ODM. Well, I think they call that later, but they use this
multi-directional gear.
Yeah, multi-directional gear. For the record, I think we've all watched the dubbed, not subbed. Correct?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
We technically watched both, but we started with the subbed version.
That's right. So there is a little bit of difference in language between the two, interestingly enough. And actually, even the subs vary just a little bit depending on if you're watching on Hulu versus other like stuff or whatever.
And it's funny that the pronunciation, of certain things is different, the wording. But what's weird is with the dubbed version, the pronunciation of the names is different, which is dumb because your name is your name no matter what language you're speaking.
Right.
If I tell you my name's Peter, then that's my name no matter what language it is. But they're like, oh, Mikasa versus Mikasa. I'm like, say it how the Japanese say it, you scrub. So okay, so those are some details to pay attention to. I think that's kind of obvious. One that might get by you, and something that if you are new to this show, holy smokes, pay attention. There's not a wasted frame, basically, in an episode. Just about everything that you see visually and everything you hear, like that's why when we're watching with like the subs, I have to read it. I'm like, everybody shut up! I have to like focus. Every detail, just especially in this episode, it's actually packed. It seems subtle as you're watching it at first, but it's actually totally packed. You want to pay attention, like I said, every frame. So one of them is Eren is having dreams when we first meet him. We actually see him kind of having these like horrific kind of dreams, and then he like wakes up and he doesn't even know where he is. Like he's so messed up. Or so like, and he says, I was dreaming for hours, or I was dreaming forever. It felt like the dream was going on forever.
And he's crying in the dream. So we're talking, and Mikasa notices him in this state, and she wakes up.
I always wake up crying from my dreams. I don't know about you guys, but what I think something that's really interesting too is the tone of the show. If you grew up watching anime, like I grew up watching Pokemon, you guys probably grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and stuff. So we kind of have this like. Anime has a pretty wide variety of tones it paints with, and one of them is kind of the kiddie, goofy, like, haha, we're on an adventure,
fun. Yeah.
Everything is great, everything is awesome.
Right.
And immediately Attack on Titan's like, this is not one of those shows. This is a serious show, and it has the tenor of like a horror or a thriller immediately. You have these birds that break up during one of the early scenes. You see Eren, he's talking with one of the guards, and he says a really pointed thing, and right when he says that, someone in the background cuts a fish head off, and you're like, oh, that's either foreshadowing, or they're trying to make a point that this is a very serious the theme, the tone is very serious, it's very somber, it's like a thriller, it's like a horror. And especially when you see that hand come over the wall, the music, the tone, the swelling, the emotion, they're trying to let you know this is not some dumb kiddie anime. This is a serious story about humanity and about deeper things, and that's why I think it appeals.
I think that if you look at it, the fish head was a good example. Like the way it makes you feel is actually so important.
Ton of
that's
emotion
why I
there,
say, that's why I say it's more like a horror, because you have the time when the scout regiment comes in and they hand this woman looking for Moses,
her son.
Yeah, pun intended, because she unwraps his arm, from the elbow to the fingertip.
Yep.
That's all that was left of him.
Yeah.
And it's this shocking moment, kind of like the fish head. There's really no need to pan to a fish head, but it's jarring and somewhat violent and kind of makes you uneasy.
Yeah.
And
it's
that's
the storytelling.
The whole episode is I feel uneasy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden there are, these things that look like humans eating humans.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like all that stuff, like you said, like the music, the like kind of cutaway shots. There's a lot of like art happening, which would be true, right? Like, so for fans of Attack on Titan, in the manga, however you say it, and in the in the cartoons in the anime, all of this, like the reason they're so long in between the seasons is because they're putting like so much work into making this thing like a piece of art. And so that's why I'm saying like each frame like matters. There's a lot of like thought put into this, and there's definitely a lot of like emotion. And for the record, I wouldn't put this in the horror genre, though you're right. Like the way this first episode kind of unfolds is like pretty graphic. And I would say that in the grand scheme of things, it remains probably one of the more graphic episodes, though there's definitely more of that. But like, that's not the only thing the show is about. It's not just the, it's not none of the stuff that you see is violence for violence sake. Yeah. Like, it's definitely all telling you. It's like getting you, like I said, they're getting you right into the action, right in the grip of the story. Like, first episode, mom dies. You're like, doing that on purpose.
So I think too, something that's important is like, if you're coming from other animes, this is your first time watcher. If you're a first time watcher, this is the most gory of all of the episodes. So
pretty much
there is blood in the future episodes. If you're kind of squeamish, stick with it.
Right.
It's going to be worth it. My wife she's not a huge anime person, and she's not like super into gore, especially. And we both watched this and we're like, oh, dang, that was some serious
Intense
stuff. But I hung on. I'd watched several before she picked it up, and I told her, like, look, it gets better. Second episode, third episode, fourth episode. It's definitely more about the story than it is about the shock. So if you're coming from another anime that's been like a kiddie or whatever anime, this is definitely more of the first episode is more of a squeamish blood and guts episode, but it does get better. So hang on, because the story is definitely, like you said,
it's worth it.
It's worth it. And especially like Daniel, you were talking about, you came from Naruto, where there's notorious amounts of filler episodes where tons of things don't mean anything. Yeah. They're writing things just for things' sake.
You can almost like skip them.
One of those stories. Yeah. You cannot miss an episode. Yeah. You cannot miss a detail.
You can't miss a piece of dialogue half the time.
Yeah.
Even like dialogue that's happening off on the sides, so to speak. Like a side character says something, like pay attention, because like that side character, or just like passerby character, might actually be somebody later on. Right. Usually that's the case. That's another detail I was going to mention is like a lot of the characters that you see, a lot of the faces you see, which they do a great job with this, giving like the distinct kind of facial characteristics. A lot of those faces, you will see them again later. Many of them, you'll see them again later from this episode.
And I think just for first-time watchers, this is actually a really fun show to watch with friends. Yeah. Initially, I watched it by myself, and then had to wait for years for season 2 to come out.
God,
and in that waiting season where I was being disciplined and I was, delayed gratification, I rewatched it again, or began to rewatch it with my wife, and then she was like, oh, that's really good. So then we actually gathered a group of our friends and we're like, hey, let's all watch it together. And it was really fun to watch together because everyone's picking up different details.
Right.
We're all pausing it when the infographics come up on screen midway through the episode and they say, the walls are Rose, Sheena, and whatever, right? Like Maria.
Yeah, pay attention to those.
We always pause it. We'd read it out loud, and then immediately following the episode, you'd get the hit with a "to be continued." You fall on your face in a pile.
Prostrate yourself, like why?
But then we immediately have a discussion about, okay, what did you guys see in the episode? What are you looking for? And it really helps kind of flavor the narrative with what's coming up. It gets your feels tingly, and you're excited for what's to come. So I'd really recommend, if you're coming from another anime, this is not a filler anime.
Nope.
Everything has meaning. Everything's important, which is a story. It's a symptom of good storytelling.
Yep.
And it's fun to watch with a group. So if you do watch it with a group and then listen to this podcast.
That's why we started the show, is because there's like so much to talk about. Yeah. And so obviously, so if you're watching this, like presently, this is February of 2020 right now. And so this fall, I think, is when, I don't think there's an exact date, but the final season is going to be airing. And I was like, well, why don't we do like a recap, essentially, rewalk through. In fact, I'm excited to rewatch the show.
Episode per episode.
And watch, with intensity. Like this one, I was super pumped because like there's so much in this first episode.
Yeah.
I was excited to rewatch this. I'm excited to continue to rewatch it to like pick up on all those details, because this is a masterclass in storytelling, just generally. Like I think that this has got to be one of the great, like, I love intrigue. I love mystery. Like those are the things I love. My favorite genres generally monster movies and like, action, I guess. But anything that has that like intense, like kind of like a brainy like mystery type of stuff, Murder on Orient Express type of things, where you have to like intrigue. Think your way through the story. Tons of that going on here.
As an example, when there's more information, it always leaves you wanting that information. If you're wanting to go, oh, what is this and that? Kind of as an example, like monster movies, one of the changing points in a monster movie is when they show the monster.
Yeah.
And it's always the beginning of the end of the movie, or at least should be, because the mystery is gone and your imagination is far worse. It's far more worse in a good sense. It's far more creative than what the monster actually looks like. Example would be Stranger Things. When Flowerface finally shows up, you're like, whoa, that's intense. But then he shows up again. It's like, oh, there he is again.
It's less scary.
It's less scary. And every time you see him after that, it's less scary.
Yeah.
Right.
But with Attack on Titan, they do the same thing that a good thriller will, is they tease it in the very beginning. So the very first thing you see is this giant Titan over the wall, and you hear this sentence being read out, and I'll read it again here. It's, "On that day, humanity remembered the fear of being held in control by them, the humiliation of being imprisoned." So they read that, you see this giant Titan, and then you go into the episode, you see Eren dreaming, they kind of build back up to it, and then it ends on that same note. It's a circular episode. And I think that's important because
it's like a good song.
It's a good song. The whole concept of Attack on Titan came from a drawing that was seen with that picture. It was a Titan peering over the wall into this semi like European, German looking middle-aged kind of village, and like where your brain goes from that. And the creator of Attack on Titan is Hajime Isayama.
Yeah. Sorry. We're Gaijin. Is it Gaijin?
We're Gaijin,
We're the Gaijin. I'm sorry.
He's about a year older than I am. He's born in 1986.
Dude, I didn't know he's that young.
I know.
Dang,
I know. Okay. What a legend. And so he wrote a manga based on something he saw, right? This picture. And over 100 million copies have been sold so far. So obviously pretty successful.
Compelling.
But it's all about the feeling, he got when he drew that picture, or when he saw that picture, the feeling he got and where his mind went. And I think it's a really awesome like kind of show on creativity, because we could all have seen that and it could have all meant something different to us. But to him, his mind went into a certain spot and he began to unfold this story in his head.
I love that.
It's great storytelling of what's to come. So they tease you with that, because that's the key. Here's a Titan peering over the wall. It makes humanity feel humiliated, controlled.
Yeah.
They're always in fear. And like you're saying, Daniel, like the tone of this episode, you're on edge, the knife, the birds, Eren waking up in a dream crying. There's something wrong. And what's wrong is they're trapped like rats. And one of the themes of the episode is Eren going back to, he hates being trapped. So many people are complacent. You've got the family members hugging their kids.
The guards, the garrison members who are just drinking because who cares? Yeah, it's been 100 years. They'll never break through these walls. Yeah.
The walls are 50 meters tall. It's no big deal. And Eren is the only one saying when things are, when they seem calmest, that's when things can go wrong. And he even says, his dad says that, Dr. Yeager Grisha. And his dad says that, and they say, "Oh, your dad said that." Well, that
Then it must. Yes, what does dad say? True. Yeah, that's one of the things. Another small detail in there. The doctor said that. Like the guards, like people in town, know Eren's dad. Like the stuff he says, like carries weight. They're like, "Oh, I guess it's something you can trust in what he says."
What's interesting is how the beginning of the episode starts with the hand and the face, and it's this ahead of time. before the episode even launches into it. You know ahead of time this is happening. And then it shows the regular life of people going about their lives. And which, you know, it kind of knits your heart with, oh, these are people. Kind of like when the scout regiment comes back and there's things going on there and the people are saying so few came back, things like that. They're knitting their hearts with these people. And also the idea of a 12-year-old, I feel like we can all, about 10 to 12, I think, is like, I think people can identify with that. So there's stories that you identify with, but what's amazing is that you see it at the beginning. You know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the entire episode, the way it's filmed,
still building to that,
it's like, the fish head got chopped. And you just get this like, that's weird. Why do I feel this way? And then it happens and everybody just starts dying. And you're just like, it gives, and that's why I say, I wouldn't put it in the horror genre, but the way that it
that episode makes you feel that suspense. Yeah.
And it tells you on the front end. And you're still tense at the end.
Yeah.
So while we're on that subject of like that moment when the kind of the breakthrough happens, like again, a couple of details I want to draw attention to. Eren gives this line. He says the guarantee that they won't break through today, or no, sorry, it's Armin says this. The guarantee that they won't break through today just doesn't exist. And right when he says that, that's when the lightning strikes and everybody stops and looks up at the wall, and they give you this like quiet moment of suspense, like
everyone's like, an explosion? What happened?
Yeah, like what to happen? But nobody's saying anything.
Yeah.
And then, like, you see the hand, like, grip the wall, and then Eren drops a line, just going to draw attention to this, no spoilers, but he says, you know, it's him, it's the Titan, in this weird way. Like, why would he, like, it's him, like, is a specific Titan, like, how would he know? So,
but going back to the dream, without knowing anything, we watch Eren, he has these dreams, there are these flashes of something.
Like, violent stuff, yeah.
Violent stuff, he's crying, he's so messed up, and he says the dream, it felt like it went on forever, he wakes up, then later in this same episode, we see something that happens. His mom is picked up out of the wreckage and eaten by this crazy clown-looking Titan.
And that's one of the things
and that's something that was in his dream.
In his dream, yeah.
So what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
And how does he have dreams that either come true or is it something where it's that like Shutter effect where you think you saw something first, but you dreamed it later? Like what's happening with Eren's mind here? Without even knowing anything, we can know there's something deeper going on. Eren's on edge. He's frustrated with these garrison guys who have been drinking because
he wants to know what's going on outside the walls.
Yeah, everyone's content to live in a life of confinement, and he's not.
Yeah,
there's only
like
a few people who are not. It's Eren and it's Armin, and they have this hope beyond the walls.
Right.
And they're mocked for Armin. We see Armin getting bullied because he was talking about believing in a hope beyond the walls.
Yeah.
And all the kids, or all the garrison guys, they're all drinking, they're laughing because who cares? We can all just, eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's always been this way. It's always going to be this way.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing to really be afraid of.
This false hope. And Eren says, don't you know it could happen at any time? I believe in a humanity beyond the walls. And later on, Mikasa bus chucks, just historic bus chucking of Eren.
Eren wants to join the scouts.
Yeah, don't tell my dad. Okay, Eren wants to join the scouts.
She just leads with that.
Yeah.
She just opens up with.
Yeah, and you can tell based off of that alone, Mikasa's going to be one of the most hardcore people in the whole show.
Yeah,
based on the bus chucking of Eren Yeager really early on.
Yeah, you get a good sample of each character in this of the main characters: Mikasa, Armin, and Eren. Like Eren's like what's outside the walls. He's like really aggressive and just is like kind of a little headstrong.
Yeah,
Mikasa is unusually strong, especially for a young girl.
Yeah.
Like, and there are other women in this episode. This isn't just like a feministy thing. Like you see Mikasa like one-handing Eren. Like these bully guys literally run just when they see her, and Armin's
she
like
can handle herself.
Yeah, and then Armin, like as he's being bullied, he reasons with them so much so he almost gets them to put him down. He's like, in a way, I'm winning over you right now. And he's like, what the heck?
He's the like idealistic, intelligent,
super smart,
thinker.
Very crafty, like. Yeah, he thinks his way deeply. So that's like very much says something. One more detail I want to throw in. Pay attention to this one. Eren's dad is the doctor. He says, I have to go into town, right? And so Eren's dad leaves in this episode, and he says, when I get back, I want to show you what's going on in the cellar. I want to show you what's going on in the basement, which is why we call this podcast Beyond the Basement. And this is going to be a spoiler. I'm sorry. It's gonna be a hot minute before we figure out exactly what's going on in that basement. But something to pay attention to there is he shows him this key. He's like, hey, look at this key. I'm going to show you what's going on. And he puts it back in his shirt and he leaves with that key. So just keep that detail in mind for future.
Yeah.
So
if we can go back to that conversation. So Eren, he wants to join the Scouts. Why does he want to join the Scouts? Because he believes in a life beyond the walls. That's where he gets his hope, right? That's where his hope comes from, is that there's going to be a life beyond the walls. And when he hears the Scout Regiment, the bell ringing, Scout Regiment, right? He runs to see the Scout Regiment, and he looks into the crowd of the Scouts coming back like they should be the conquering heroes, right? These are the guys who risk their lives, who go out to discover what's beyond the walls. It's what Eren believes in. It's what Armin believes in. It's the ideal of hope, of a life more than just livestock. Yeah. And I think that's a transcendent moment where all of us think like...
Yeah, we can all relate to that.
There's got to be something more to life than just working a 9 to 5. There's got to be something more than just paying bills and dying. There's got to be something that's out there beyond that. And that's where our hope comes from, right? And so Eren's got this hope. Nobody else really seems to have that same thing. Eren and Armin are kind of the ones that have that. And they run up hopeful to see the symbol of hope. The Scouts come back, right? They got this cool looking logo on the back of their shirt. And as they ride back in, they all have their heads hung down, and there's a moment where Eren locks eyes with one of the Scouts. He's this strong looking dude. He's on a horse, blonde, right? And he just he can't even make eye contact with this young hopeful boy. Yeah. And that's the state of the Scouts. That's the state of where they're at. Is they want to try to make a life beyond the walls, but it's just hopeless.
Yeah.
And even with the hand, where Moses's mom comes, she gets the hand. And she says, "Where's my boy?" And they say, "This is all that's left of Moses." And then the only thing she says then is, "Did he make a difference? Was his life worth something? Did it help?" And at first, the commander guy, he looks at her. He's like,
he says, "Of course,
of course." But then,
tell me his sacrifice gave us a better chance. That's the line she gets.
He's hit with the same hopelessness, the same futility. It was because of what the commander did. I didn't do something right, and a lot of commanders experience this in battle where their men die, and how come it was me? It wasn't me, and it wasn't somebody else. He's hit with the same futility. They don't know anything more about the Titans than they did before. They didn't get any further than they did before. There is no hope, and that's kind of the theme, right? And they think, well, at least we're all safe in the town. At least we're okay here. At least we're
safe behind the walls.
Maybe we don't know anything
for another
else.
Half an hour,
and then Titan kicks in the door, and all of a sudden, all of your hopes crumble immediately when that happens.
Yeah,
that's an interesting observation because like there's so many things in this episode that you can identify with, and I feel like more than just a few of us have had that feeling like, oh, this is hopeless, know, and then it's actually worse than hopeless, and that's kind of what that commander
the opposite
was saying.
Of hope,
and Eren has this thing in him despite all the possibilities of death. Like there's this thing in him that is, and Armin as well. They're both, it's this longing, and they don't even use the word, but it's freedom.
Yeah.
They want, they're caged. They're he says,
we're livestock. Yeah.
Said it
we're
many
no better,
times. We're no better than livestock.
And that continues on throughout the show.
It's definitely a theme. Yeah.
I think
is humanity more than just livestock? Are we more than just animals in cages?
And I think that's something that's something that's almost universal.
Yeah.
It speaks
that's what makes
to
a good
truth.
story.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I think we've pretty well covered, I think, most of the good stuff in the episode, the spoiler-free section.
Let's jump right back in to where they're at the conversation at the table.
Okay. So are we officially giving the warning then?
No. We're still good.
We're still good. Okay. No spoilers. Yeah. All right.
No
continue.
Spoilers.
Hit me. Conversation at the table.
I just want to go back there because I think, like you're saying, we see a little bit of the characters there. Right?
Yeah.
So we see
each of them. Yep.
The reason that Eren wants to join the Scouts is he believes in a humanity that's not just livestock, and there's something more. There's a hope beyond the walls, right? And that's what his character is driven by, is this hope beyond the walls. We know that then Eren's mom, how could you? You can't do this, right?
Yeah.
And she's just chewing him out like a typical mom. It's too dangerous. You can't do that. And then Eren's mom turns to his dad and says, you speak some sense into him. And Eren's dad asks him, why do you want to go outside the walls?
Yeah, very calmly too. He's not freaked out by it.
And he wants to know why, right? And Eren turns to him. And he basically says, like, I have to believe there's something beyond the walls. I have to believe there's kind of hope for humanity. And that changes Eren's dad's perspective. It's not just about this kid's young. He just wants to go do whatever he wants to do, right? He doesn't want to just cast off restraint and just get drunk. It's like he wants to experience this hope, there's something worth fighting for. It's freedom. It's beyond the walls. There's something that's out there, right? There's paradise that could be obtained. And that changes. That's when he says, I'll tell you what, when I get back,
I'll show you what's in the cellar.
I'll show you what's in the cellar, what I've been working on in the cellar, right? And what's in the basement. And so I think that's an important part. Eren's mom then, she's concerned about Eren's safety.
Yeah.
She turns to Mikasa and she says,
well, yeah, Dad leaves.
Then Eren goes.
It's just the three of them, and then Eren runs off as well.
And
he's all frustrated.
She turns to Mikasa and she says, she's concerned about Eren. She says, watch over Eren, right? And the next scene, we see Armin getting bullied for standing up for talking about what's outside the walls. And everyone's afraid if you don't raise your voice too loud, if you live a calm and quiet life, the giants won't see us. They won't come in, right?
Yeah. And, dude, that's a good point.
And that's what everyone wants to live quietly. Just do your thing, keep your head down, and no one will bug you, and you'll be okay. You'll get through life.
Armin actually says, he's like, it's taboo. He's like, because of the, things have been good, basically because things are okay as they are, like, it's taboo to talk about what's going on outside there at all. Like, that's why I'm getting bullied. That's why people are kind of trying to, like, silence us, basically. But, like, you can't keep a good man down. Like that's another, like, I feel like another, like, kind of theme in the show is this idea that, like, hope for a future will drive people to great lengths. Again, there's a lot of parallels to reality.
It's worth a cost for freedom, right?
And, even if it's not for you, right? That's another thing, and kind of continues to go on.
Benjamin Franklin had a pretty famous quote: "Any society that desires, safety above freedom, basically
deserves neither. Yeah.
Deserves neither, and we'll get either. He deserves." But anyway, it's a good quote.
Yeah, it's basically they don't deserve
or
it will get.
because you're willing to put your freedom behind the hope of safety, and that's not a realistic goal, and you won't get either.
Yeah, welcome to life where things are not safe.
So then we see Eren's mom gives Mikasa this task, right? Shortly after she dies. This is kind of her last charge to Mikasa. Watch out for Eren, right? So we know that Eren is driven by the hope beyond the walls. Armin is driven by something beyond the walls. Mikasa is driven
by protecting Eren,
right? So Armin,
good detail to catch. By the way,
Armin is getting beat up for his belief, and he won't shut up. Even if it's taboo, he wants to talk about something beyond the walls. It's what helps him live, is believing there's something beyond the walls. And he's getting beat up. As he's getting beat up, we see here comes Eren charging headlong, 3 versus 1 to defend somebody. Right? That's a great picture of Eren too. He doesn't think about the odds. Never tell me the odds.
And it's a clearly losing battle because all three of them said,
like,
hey, you ready for us to lick you again?
Like they probably beat him up before.
He's going to lose.
It's the opposite of every anime ever. The hero runs in, oh no, the hero is going to beat everybody up. Nope, they're like, oh, we're going to beat you up again, stupid kid. So he's been beaten before, and yet he still runs into the battle to defend somebody, to protect somebody. So this is a great picture of Eren. And Armin's there because he believes in what's outside the wall. Eren's there. He believes, but also he protects somebody. And Mikasa's there because Eren's there.
Yeah.
Right? So here's kind of their three characters you see in this one snapshot of these bullies. The bullies beat up on Armin. They'll stand and beat up on Eren. They see Mikasa. Oh, crap. They're out of there because either she can handle herself, she's really strong, or whatever it is. And at the very least, it's a fair fight that's 3v3.
Right.
And they're obviously bullies. So they run away. So I think that's a great picture of...
that scene, though, of Mikasa running in, and she has this, darkness over her eyes.
She's anime ninja running,
She's Naruto running, pretty much.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good picture of their three characters. So you see that there. Another thing I want to touch on is, obviously... the Titan kicks down the wall. Everything comes in. Everyone is shocked with fear. They never thought this could ever happen. Everyone is so freaked out. We even see a picture of Armin, and he's shaking somebody. He has to put his own hand down.
Yeah,
he's shaking.
And he said that's right when he says this is the end.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah, we're all gonna die. And I was mentioning this while we were watching it. One of the things in that he breaks through, and it's giant Titan, right? Massive
over
walls.
50 meters tall.
Yeah, he kicks through this wall or whatever, and it sends this debris flying and the top of this bell tower thing, and again, part of the kind of graphicness of what's going on in this episode is people are getting killed and crushed by the wind / impact of what that would be of that initial stuff, and by these sections of wall or whatever that are raining down. I mean, that's what crushes Eren's house or whatever. And I love how they don't spare you from that. I just feel like a lot of movies, a lot of shows oh, this thing happened. And it's like, okay, if that were real life and there's a bunch of people standing there like, oh, what's going on? They would all freaking die. And like,
this
that's
is not
actually
a Marvel movie. People actually die when explosions happen.
Yeah, there's a certain like, it's weird because we're talking about like a fanciful anime, but again, there's so many parallels to like life. There's so much in the show that's like relatable. It's compelling.
Yeah, that's why it's important. They built it up to be, look, everything's at peace. You know, the guards are getting drunk, and why wouldn't they? Because they're at peace.
You're construction workers rather than soldiers.
And he goes, that's a good.
And even the chopping off of the fish's head, it's kind of like, well, that was weird, but everybody's still going on as they should. You know, it's even in the background, everything's all normal. And then you see the same people being literally squashed with boulders and debris in front of your very eyes. And a lot of times other shows, they would pan away. They would look to something else and you would just know that they would die. But the brutality of it, it's like, you know, sometimes you see a show that's rated MA and you're like, what kind of stuff is in that? This is all violence.
Yeah.
Like 100% of it is all violence. There's really not that much cursing. There's no real sexual content. Like, it's all violence.
Yeah.
And it connects, they connected your heart with the characters, then they connect your heart with, oh, everything's at peace. And it does seem like, you know, on one level or another, well, why are you guys worrying? But we know from the front end, no, there's a reason to worry.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is a lot of shows, I don't know about you guys, but kind of like in a horror genre, like many shows, this is not just a horror. When a character does something that you're like, he's behind the couch. He's just look behind the stupid couch. He's right. You know, you're always like, this person is so dumb. If he would just be a halfway normal person like me,
if it was
then he
me,
would do this. Yeah. Eren, like this is blatantly obvious that they're writing just as a human being would act. Because when Eren is coming around the corner, I'm like, I was thinking before he even said it, I'm like, his home's got to be there. And then Eren says, it's got to be there. Let it be there.
He's like, when I turn this corner,
when I turn the corner, my home will be there. And I was thinking that as he was saying, it's like, Eren, please. You know,
if anyone's ever experienced a tragedy or experienced loss, it's the same thing.
It's accurate.
You come around the corner, or you come into your driveway, or you go to the doctor's office.
Oh God,
my wife's okay, my kid's okay, my house is fine, and you're praying silently. Let this be the case. And when you're met with something that's not right, and just before that moment, I just wanted to say, you know, Eren sees the debris. It's terrible. It's very graphic, and they don't shield you from it because war is hell.
Yeah.
And immediately, everyone runs the opposite direction. Yeah. Eren says, "My house is in that direction," and takes off. Mikasa follows Eren. Right. Armin cannot bring himself to go. He's too panicked. He's shaking. He's gripped with fear like everybody else. The only one who went in the direction of the rubble was Eren, because his mom is in that direction. Comes around the corner. Please let my house be there. It'll be there like always. Comes around the corner. His house is in rubble. His mom's laying crushed under the weight.
Yep. He tries to like lift her out anyway. I mean, like
very emotional.
That scene, this whole scene from the turning the corner to, you know, the how the whole thing plays out. You know, he gets there. Whatever, his mom's crushed. They try and lift it. They can't do anything. Hannes shows up, right? This, by the way, this is a scene I totally forgot about. The moment where he like goes, "I'm gonna save all of them. I'm gonna go in there," right? And he runs up.
But he says to repay my debt.
Yeah, to repay the debt that I owe. He's like, the least I can do to repay the debt that I owe, right?
Yeah.
And he runs towards the Titan, goes to like draw his sword, and then like they pan up and you look up at this freaky looking Titan, which heretofore will be known as the Clown Titan, because holy crap, it's got the creepiest like clown looking face smile thing. He looks up at it and is like, yeah, nope. And just puts his sword back and because as he's running in there, he actually says like, "Oh, I could save the two kids.
Yeah,
I'm gonna save everybody.
At least I could save the two kids, but I'm gonna try and I'm gonna kill this beast, to save them all." And he's like, "Yeah, JK, man, like I'm gonna salvage what I can here." And then he runs back and like grabs the kids. And that scene, the slow mo of like Eren, like mom, whatever, like he's like the cry, the voice acting, like all of it, like it genuinely, the first time I watched it, I started to cry a little bit because it was so heart-wrenching, and I was like, okay, at least have to see what goes on in episode 2, okay?
Right? Immediately.
Yeah.
So the first time I saw it, I said the same thing. I have to watch the next episode. Like, I need to turn on the lights and watch episode 2. And then after episode 2, I'm like, this is not getting better. I have to keep watching it until it gets better for these people.
How many did you watch?
Stopped 3.
How many? 3. Okay, all right. You were able to put it down after 3.
I think I started episode 4, and then I was like, Okay, I'll stop there.
Yeah.
Like I didn't finish. It was like 5 minutes of episode 4. So.
Yeah, which, okay, on that note, as we're kind of coming in the close of the episode here, Netflix, Hulu, they all have the like autoplay thing that skips like the end credits.
Yeah.
Don't do that. If you want to fully enjoy this show, it's not just that there is a like in the next episode they give you like little hints of like the next. They do give you that after the credits, but I'm saying the credits themselves, this one in particular, which we will get to in the spoiler section, but like there's just stuff in there you should pay attention to.
Yeah, I think it's important too because, like I said, this is not a filler anime. This is one where everything they do is with intent and with purpose. Everything means something, and so paying attention, being a detective, you're putting these things together, and where they go is really worth the journey. So it's worth it to like take these notes. But I wanted to touch on that very same theme, like you're talking about. This is a very relatable, humanistic story because you're experiencing what these characters are experiencing. You see, his mom die, get eaten, and just before she dies, she's pleading with Eren and Mikasa, get out of here, save yourselves. Why should all three of us die? She says, Eren, you're hard-headed, like, please just listen to me for once.
Yeah, this one last time, yeah.
We know Eren's hard-headed. Earlier, she talks about, you did more than usual work. Obviously, he's not a good worker. He's hard-headed. He's foolhardy. He's got all these kind of like flaws, but he has these good things. He runs towards the danger if he sees someone in trouble.
Yeah.
He stands up for what he believes in.
He's got a true hero's heart.
He's got a true hero's heart, but I don't know if you guys like have lost somebody, but my grandpa, before he died, there's almost a clarity that comes over people sometimes. Mm-hmm. And he, luckily I got to be with him, before there, but he was in the hospital and he looked me straight in the eye and said, some very tranquil things about, taking care of your family and doing these things right. And it's the same type of moment. They write that into Eren's mom. She says, protect yourselves. And as they're running away, she says, you must survive, and this is the dying wish of a mom. You must survive. So she just already told, Mikasa, watch out for Eren. And she's telling Eren, you have to survive. This is important. And earlier we talked about the futility of it all. Was my life worth something? And basically, if Eren's mom if her life is going to be worth something, Eren needs to survive. Mikasa has to survive. They have to keep humanity going. They have to keep growing a hope. Otherwise, it's all for nothing. And that's, that's something we go off of, especially in war. If someone died in the line of capturing this point, you don't want to lose that point.
Yeah. You don't want their loss to mean nothing.
Yeah. And so we take these minor points in our lives as our friends, pass away, or we see things, people die. We see these things and they're kind of minor capture points, and we don't want to give that ground up because that ground is affiliated with somebody who gave their life for something that's worth a cause. And so we want to believe in that. We want to keep going. And this is the charge that Eren has. Hannes comes in like a hero. And he's been drinking all day. He's foolhardy.
Sobered up pretty quick at this.
He looks at that Titan, and it's the same thing. It's like Eren, comes around the corner. It's the same thing I thought. I could take out these bad guys. I could do what's right. And sometimes we run into situations where we just don't have what it takes. We think we do. I can save everybody, and then all of a sudden we're not strong enough. We're not good enough. We have these emotions of failure, and at the very least, he obeys what Eren's mom says. He rescues the two kids. Eren's screaming, "No, put me down! How dare you!" And she smiles and says, "Arigato, Hannes. Thank you. Like, you at least saved my kids."
Yeah. There is something. The first time I watched that, I was actually like yelling at my laptop screen, going, "You coward! Like, turn around! Like, what are you doing?" But realizing, taking notice, he'd been drinking. Mm-hmm. You're talking about these guards, who haven't really fought.
They've never had any combat in 100 years.
They do show this in the episode. It's not a spoiler, but exactly. 100 years of peace and safety. He's a guard who's behind the walls. These guys have never even seen a Titan, let alone fought one.
So the odds are, even if he tries to fight this Titan, he's going to get eaten.
And then the kids.
And then the kids and the mom, they're all going to get eaten if he tries to fight this thing.
So he actually ends up making the right decision.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Unfortunately, even though he is a bit of a coward, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's a coward who makes the best of what he has.
Yeah.
Right.
He's realistic.
I still think he makes a better decision.
But there's that saying, I think, that rings true in this as well, is, hard times make hard men, right? That's right. Hard men make soft times make soft men make hard times, right? There's a cycle of life. And so far, they've all been.
It's soft.
It's soft times.
They've all soft men.
Just
soft
chill
times.
out. Just drink while you're on guard duty. Like in any military spot ever in the United States, if anyone did that, like you're done, son. Right? Like lots of punishment at the very least while you're on duty, at least. Right? Mm-hmm. You can drink like a sailor when you're off, but when you're on duty, this is serious stuff. And yet here are these guys, and they're like, guard duty's no big deal. We're just gonna drink. People are just laughing, but there's monsters outside, and that reality comes crashing in on them. Yeah. All their hope of their peaceful village comes crashing in with the appearance of a lightning strike and a Titan.
Dang. Okay, I feel like that's a good stopping point in a sense. So, the plan here is to do, like I said, do spoiler free. Just talk through the episode, kind of talk through what our first reactions are, talk through some of the intrigue, some of what's going on in the episode itself, where it might lead. But it's kind of hard to get too deep into this without having at least some spoilers. So I think I want to transition to that. So this is the official warning. If you have not watched the show before, if you're like, you're just first episode and you're joining us for the podcast, first of all, thank you for joining us for the podcast. We are going to be... if you're just listening to this on audio, we do a video show version of this. It does stream live on Facebook Sunday nights about 8 o'clock is kind of what we're shooting for. Obviously, we'll kind of announce that as things go on. There'll be more content on that Facebook page. It'll also be uploaded to YouTube, so you can kind of go watch that there. We'll have all that stuff set up shortly. My website, the whole 9 yards are open for merch and everything that makes a good show. So stick around if you are interested in Attack on Titan. Like I said, this is going to be the place to be. This is the show we wish was going on. Like, especially as I was watching this show, I wished I like go to work and like have my podcast in and be like, oh man, like I can't stop thinking about that episode last night. Like, what about this? And like, especially if you're like by yourself, you don't have anybody to be like, who, you got friends who haven't seen it or something. You can't just be like, what do you think this means or whatever? So that's kind of the purpose of the show, is to sort of satiate that the intrigue and the mystery and the like need for conversation about it. Also, we'll be setting up, I want to get an email address and some, obviously on social media, if you're watching, Facebook and YouTube and so on and so forth. I want to hear from other people. Like, what was your first reaction?
What did you notice? What was the things that like, caught your eye? You were like, what does that mean?
Yeah. And ideally show watchers, obviously for the manga, you're welcome. But for us, we experienced this as the show first. So I just, those are the
and if you guys see any Titans that look like they might be related, please let them know. Please like get some contact information. I want to be reunited with my kin.
With your with your Titan kind?
Yeah.
Was that a spoiler alert?
No.
Titankin.
I don't think you're Titankin. Oh Lord. Okay, so that's your official warning. We are gonna go switch to spoilers. We'll keep this short, so this episode's not like crazy long. But turn it off now, okay? We're going to do like a few more minutes, but we're going to talk about stuff that happens in the future. So, goodbye. We love you. 3, 2, 1. Okay, spoilers.
You've been warned.
Aaron's dreaming about the future?
Yes.
Aaron's dreaming about the future before he has the Titan power.
The very first scene we see of Eren, he's having flashbacks of the future. And well, okay, I'm not sure what all of them are, but for sure one of them is he sees his mom being eaten ahead of time.
Before it happens.
Then
and some other stuff.
Then he sees a picture of, I think it's the royal palace.
I'm pretty sure.
Of where the royal family, I forget what their name is.
I'm trying to remember their names right now too. The
little
royal blonde family, girl.
The blonde girl. Yeah.
Can't say anyways. We haven't watched it in so long. It's been forever since we actually sat and watched it.
We'll get studied up. But the royal family, and there's blood because of what Gersha probably, I think of what Gersha,
Aaron's father.
Aaron's father goes and kidnaps, there's kind of multiple things.
There's a ton of like little details. I almost think we should go back and just like study that, like each frame of that. Because each one of those is like,
it's worth it.
Because we actually did this before, because we actually had an argument one time over the episode about where Aaron's dad shows, like, there's an episode where Eren has like another dream, or it looks like a dream, but it's actually the episode where Aaron's dad like gives him the Titan fluid and like does that whole deal. We like went back and watched that, and like when you break that down, the original episode where they show Eren having this dream of like his dad giving him the shot and stuff like that, and then the key, it's not the future. It's
but he has the key.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we were arguing about.
That's what we were arguing about.
Because I was saying, no, sometime in between them fleeing the village and now, Eren's dad went back, found Eren, injected him, and gave him the key.
Exactly. And I was like, no. Like, Eren had the key at the beginning. And he was like, no. So we actually watched episode 1. And it's like, yeah, he leaves the key.
Eren's dad, Grisha, leaves with the key.
He leaves with the key. So where did Eren get it?
He comes back at some point and gives Eren the key.
But we don't see Grisha, per se.
He has to So this is really far in the future. This is an episode we're talking about way far in the future.
Full spoilers.
This is for long-time show watchers who've already seen all of the episodes, and if not, how dare you?
How dare you?
Go like binge it all now.
Yeah.
So when that would mean the only possible outcome then is that Grisha had Eren. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I'm hesitating. Grisha had Eren eat Grisha.
Yes. That's what that dream part shows.
Yeah.
But then how did Mikasa and Armin
you're hitting it exactly.
Together? Like,
yes, exactly. No,
Grisha would have to
He didn't take Eren away.
Memories.
He didn't take Eren away.
Here's the thing is, no, they don't actually explain that. They don't actually explain it.
But they do mention it much later on, so it is confusing at first. But they mention it much later on. Yeah. Armin says something like, "Yeah, remember when your dad came back and something? Where did he go?" or something like that.
He said that.
He said it much later on.
Wow.
I think they I don't know if that's a plot hole necessarily. They do leave that part like a little bit vague, but like they in sprinkles basically do detail like what happened, and it's true. Aaron's dad comes back at some point.
Yeah.
Turns Eren into a Titan, has him eat Grisha, which is why we never see him again after the fact, because it's for Eren
because he did,
and gives him his Titan shifter power, and the
Titan shifter power and
and the founding Titan. He makes him the coordinate, the founding Titan, right? He gives him essentially gives him two Titan powers right there, right? Because he has both. He just went and got the founding Titan power. Yeah. Then he also has the attack Titan power, and then and the key to the basement, which is
jacked up because my dad didn't even give me anything. Like, and Aaron's dad, like some people,
he gave him the ability to transform into a Titan.
2 Titan powers and a key. Come on, I can't get $10,000. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, give me a little something. Okay, so other spoiler part, the end credits are so. I did not know how good they were. You can't know your first time watching this. The end credits, again, don't skip. If you're rewatching it, don't skip the freaking end credits. There's always good stuff in there.
Skip anything.
They show Mikasa, like we were kind of talking about this before, how like Mikasa in this episode is like actually this episode like pseudo actually about her as this like unusual. She's an Ackerman, right? Like she has this unusual strength, unusual power. And at the end of this episode, you see her surrounded by like all these knives, and we're like theorizing, basically saying like, isn't that the knife where
Eren goes and kills the guy who kidnapped
when he saves her life,
episodes.
and then she has to also take that knife to save his, that same little scenario. They both use this knife, and she's like in this like dream state, and she's like surrounded by that knife, but like
they're
hundreds of times.
They're foreshadowing. They're telling you this is going to happen, but they do it in an episode where you wouldn't even know what it is. It just looks like
it seems
goofy
like
credit,
artistic. It's not.
But it's not, and it shows Mikasa transforming from this little frail girl into this
woman, soldier
woman, and it shows Eren transforming into this young boy, into this warrior guy,
into a man.
Yeah, and so they're foreshadowing that in the end credits, which, in my opinion, I hate that the Japanese do this, because even in the intro credits, initially in this one, but in some of the seasons in the intro credits, they show a ton of stuff you haven't seen yet. And in no American show would we ever be like, by the way, here's a bunch of people you've never met in the opening credits. In Friends, they just show you like just the characters of the cast, or they show you just nothing until in the pilot, until you get to the characters, then they show you more. But in Japanese show, they're like, by the way, here's a cool opening sequence of all these characters you've never seen. So you're getting hints all the time, like, wait, okay, that's the guy that is in the opening credits, and they almost give too much away.
But you still want to watch it.
Watch it.
There's a reason I've never watched Soylent Green, right?
Because the
spoiler, Soylent Green is people. Everybody has said that since the garden.
For the record, you are not missing much. It is just a cheesy, like late 60s,
Charlton
like sci-fi.
Heston is a man's man, all right?
It's true. It's true.
Put some respect on your name when you talk about Charlton.
Anyway, you were saying.
He's a lot better. I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, but I don't feel the need to at all, because the punchline is Soylent Green is people.
Right.
I feel like the art of building a story, if the mystery is the only thing that you're revealing, like that's not enough.
That's not much.
You should be asking the how and why, and they give it all beforehand with Soylent Green. I get that, but they with anime, I feel like there's still more. Even though they give you, like, this first episode is a perfect example. You see the thing kick in the wall, but there's so much information that you haven't been given. And the ability to reveal the story while they slowly disseminate that information, where you're still entertained, but you're still wanting more information.
It's a good story. And I think, like you're saying, if you already know the punchline, then the joke's not funny, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's told well enough, it will be. And it's done good with anime, but it's also done good. Like, there's been several movies that have come out, and then the prequel comes out, and all the time I'm immediately turned off. Why?
Mm-hmm.
I know where it's going.
What happens.
I know which characters are going to die. So
I know what Anakin Skywalker turns into.
There's no weight to it.
Turns out.
However, would you guys agree Rogue One was a very good movie? You enjoyed it?
Sure. Yeah, Rogue One is a movie. Rogue One it's a small story in its essence.
It really is.
It's filling in a gap.
But
and you know what happens.
What's going to happen, right? So how could you enjoy a tale when you know what's happened? It's told well with good characters, good stories. Even though you know the end from the beginning, you still really enjoy it because it's done with good storytelling.
This episode is a microcosm of that, because I don't even think, like, even with all, at least in Attack on Titan, at least in this show, even with all the, like, you know, stuff they put in the credits and like characters they show you ahead of time,
no way
like,
you could know.
There's no stinking way you could know. It is definitely like, if anything, it is for nerds like us, right? And for like rewatchability.
To go back and be like,
yeah, my mind's going like, okay, so for instance, back to this episode. So we're watching this. I did not realize that as the scouts are coming back in, like, first I'm like, oh, freaking Urban is in here, and he's not. I don't think he's commander yet. He's not commander.
No.
And the dude who's leading this particular squad, the like commander dude, is the guy who ends up being Eren and Mikasa's like basic training guy, who also just so happens, like, here's the thing is, like, he must not see Eren in this, like, in that scenario where they'll come back in town, because they don't show any connection between the trainer guy and Eren. Like, I don't know if that's on purpose, but like. Mm-hmm. That guy knows Grisha. Knows him well. Yeah. He's the guy who freaking like found him outside the walls, basically, right? And for something like that.
He's the first person to have that connection to them.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that, you know, if you are rewatching, you realize as they talk about Grisha, Eren's dad, the Dr. Yeager, he's the one who saved us from that virus.
Yeah, from that plague or whatever.
That's something that they touch on later on. So that's a cool hint you would never have known. And I completely missed it the first time. Like, who cares? He's a doctor or whatever. He's going to the interior for some reason.
Was there anything else in this episode that like really any characters?
I think we hit it already, but the Mikasa story, you alluded to it with the knife. So I think there's something interesting and I think it's pretty obvious, but the episode where Eren and Mikasa are in, you know, Eren disobeys Grisha, goes into the house to save Mikasa. In the one episode, it's right when they adopt Mikasa because her parents.
The flashback episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this moment when I love it. It's like this flashback of Mikasa realizing, like, in order for things to live, something needs to die. And Eren's saying, fight, fight. And she has this moment where she picks up the knife. And
powerful.
The thing about it is there are some things that happen that seem like, oh, that's just over exaggeration.
Overacting,
like, when the commander comes in with the scouts in this particular episode, he like hits the ground and he starts getting ready to tell his noble lie to Moses's mom and say, yes, he fought valiantly, which he doesn't say, of course. Mm-hmm. He says, no, his life was wasted and it's my fault.
Yeah.
And which is amazing. That whole scene is good.
Ownership.
But when he does that, he starts screaming and there's like these action lines behind them.
Classic.
That doesn't happen that often in an anime, so it does happen, but this is more of a realistic anime. This isn't JoJo's Bizarre Adventure where everything is like
it's
super
one
dramatic.
That pulls on. Okay, so all right, I just have to say this in the front end. We'll talk about this a lot, I'm sure, but I basically put Attack on Titan in the sci-fi category because there's a lot, because science fiction, right, is science, real stuff, and fiction, not real stuff. Yeah. This is one of those movies that kind of, like you said, kind of transcend, or movies, shows, it transcends, right, the science. There's like a lot of relatable, like the emotions that they experience, the way that they react to stuff feels real and human. So that's what draws you in. But the fiction is, obvious, like
fiction,
setting, everything.
Have the fiction to make it an interesting story. And in this part, like when Mikasa, she grabs the knife, there's this moment of where she's saying, oh, there needs to be death for life and I need to fight to survive. That's the basic idea. And she finally, like, something snaps in her brain. There's electricity that happens all around her, right? And then all of a sudden her foot just sinks into a wooden floor. My point is, this is not the anime that is super dramatic. If that happens, that happens.
It's not drama for drama's sake.
Yeah. So my point is, I think at that moment, that's when that Ackerman gene, like, that's unlocked.
Activates, yeah.
And you see it, like, the first time you see her throw Eren one-handed, you're like...
In episode 1, yeah.
That seems like just an anime thing,
about, yeah.
What is this? You know, that's crazy, and I think that's the effect of it.
Sure.
It's Keith. Sadis or Sardis is the guy, is the trainer guy.
Yeah.
I forgot his name. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Anyway, that was the guy who's the trainer who then tells us no lie. And I got to say, you know, in anime, there's a flair for the dramatic, you know.
Certainly true.
There's characters.
That's usually my turnoff, is it's over dramatic.
And honestly, that's the truth though about every drama, is everything, they always turn every dial up, you know. Every sitcom is like, well, you wouldn't really tell that many lies in a row, but they show you kind of like, if you follow that line of thinking, and that's why it's funny, because like, well, we wouldn't really do that, but there's an element of truth in there. No one's exactly like Seinfeld, but there's an element of truth in there. No one's quite like Kramer, but everybody knows a guy who's kind of like Kramer. And so in this anime, you know, Eren, you know, is definitely, I've heard a couple people be like, that's really turned me off, is this kid screaming all the time, because kids don't just be like, are you kidding me, the walls? You know, like, but...
I feel like I've known some kids
Understandable.
Understandable. I was a kid like that. But
dire times came.
Yeah, and you get this this Keith guy, and he's screaming, it was all futile, it was all worthless. But like, soldiers really go through, you know, bouts where they regret everything, and they're emotional. Yeah. So even though this does seem like all of a sudden it ramps up to 100 and then it comes back down, yes, they're telling you a truth that does happen. Maybe they're turning it up a little bit to exaggerate, because it's media. We have to exaggerate to understand.
Yeah.
But
geez, hang in there, dude. Because this show, I feel like season one has more of that than I feel like the following seasons, in terms of the voice acting at least, there's less of that, and just the tone is more subdued in general. Like, there's just it's a little more self-controlled.
Yeah.
I feel like this season has a little more of that typical
I think
screamy anime stuff.
I think they were trying to figure out where the volume was, like the year is 8:45. Shiganshina Eren's like, the walls! Oh, turn it back down. Okay, the year is, you know, like, they kind of do that throughout the first little bit. Stick with it. To be fair, in the defense of the characters, Eren is a teenage boy who watched his mom get murdered. Yeah. Everyone he's known has died. He thinks he's alone. He's a shell-shocked PTSD teenage boy who thinks he's going to die. So I give him a little bit of grace with the screaming all the time in seemingly innocuous, you know, moments, especially with what he's
deeply
seen.
Emotional. Okay.
He's deeply emotional, and aren't we all when we're teenage boys?
We all?
Yeah.
Okay, so this episode went way longer than I thought it was going to, but I feel like this is good. We got some deep content, some kind of like real stuff going into this, which is definitely what I want to continue to do. Like I said, that's why I want to have a show like this, because like this is a show worth talking about, because it hits on these kind of like deeper themes. Yeah. And as far as I can tell, it's like all the other media that's out there, especially like podcasts or like show rewatches and stuff like that, they just feel very superficial. There's nothing like they're like, then this happened, and this guy's an actor, and he's played by this character's played by this actor, and then like, it's cool, huh? And I'm like, come on, like, no, like let's get into the story a little bit, and let's kind of like go deep in it. So that's kind of the point of this podcast. That being said, I mean, I think
closing thoughts.
Yeah, closing thoughts. Kansas, do you have a final word? Anything else you want to add? Daniel, sorry, he has two names to me.
I hear the bird's the word.
The bird is the word.
Yeah. I think that's about it.
That's it. That wraps it up.
Well, let me just say this.
Hit us.
Attack on Titan, you know, is a piece of art. And therefore, you know, it wasn't written, you know, just for entertainment's sake. It's written to tell a story, and it's written to do it well. And so just like, you know, any piece of art, you know, if you see, you know, a painting, you don't immediately say like, oh, cool. The cool thing about this painting is he used this color blue. Like, no, what does the painting mean? What is he trying to say? What are the themes beyond the story, you know? And so for people to get off on like voice actors or like kind of step-by-step stuff, like there's a deeper story being told. It connects to us in reality. All good stories, you know, tell something that's true about the world. And so this is definitely one of those things. It's a piece of art. It's brilliantly crafted. It was created in one giant stretched as a story.
We'll talk a lot more about that.
Written bit by bit by bit, just to make things try to make sense. And so when you look at it, it's definitely worth going back and looking at it again. Just like any painting, you know, you look at it and you got to look at an angle. You want to look at it a couple different times. A song, you want to hear it, you know, again and again and again. You want to experience the ups and the downs, right? And just like that, I think Attack on Titan is worth studying. It's worth looking at because it is deep. It is for a purpose, and it can relate a lot to our modern day lives. So
yeah, I agree. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You can find us, if you're not already there, Spotify, iTunes, all the different podcast places. Again, YouTube and Facebook. These will be uploaded in video format, and we live stream on Sunday nights. We will get the web stream. We'll get the live stream. We'll get the website, the merch, the email, all that stuff set up in future episodes. So keep on listening, and thanks again for watching. We will see you in episode 2 when we commence
the basement.
A Clink on Titan.
Yes, a Clink on Titan. Actually, it's Beyond the Basement. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching and listening. If you're enjoying the show, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. If you're really loving it and you want some extra cool content, you can join our Patreon page over at patreon.com/beyondthebasementpodcast. Check the show notes or our social media pages for links to some really rad Attack on Titan merch. All right, guys. See you next time.